Hey everybody, this is Christina, the AmputeeOT. I recently did an interview with my friend Steven because he completed the journey from below the knee amputee to above the knee amputee. Steven offered a lot of insights on the transition from BK to AK, which I found very helpful. Hopefully you will too. The interview has been edited to be a little bit shorter because it was originally about an hour long, but I may make the full interview available at a later date. All right, enjoy. Bye-bye. The reason I want to do the interview with you is because, as you know already, I'm going to take the step of becoming an above the knee amputee, and you have had that experience. And so I wanted to know what your experience was about. Why did you become a below the knee amputee in the first place?
So on July 4th of 2018, I was coming home from the gym and I was on my motorcycle when this lady wasn't paying attention. She's pulled out in front of me. And so I slammed to the side of her car and my right leg was crushed between the bike and the car. And at the time, like I've always been an athlete, like I ran track in college and I've always been a good athlete. And um, the doctor told me that with how severe the leg was, that he could rebuild my leg, but that I wasn't going to be able to do those things. And so I was like, well, then I don't want the leg. But he didn't listen and he just rebuilt it anyway. And then 6 months later, they were like, oh shit, we need to cut this thing off. So all that time I could have been recovering, they just wound up cutting it off anyway. So
And then, so you were a below the knee amputee for a while, right?
15 months.
Yeah. So what was that experience like?
Honestly, it sucked. I had it just from day one. I just had nothing but issues with my residual limb. Nothing that had to do with the surgeon. He did a great job. It's just I just had issues. Like for some reason, I was never able to wear a leg longer than like 5 minutes without having to take it off because I was in so much pain. So I tried. Initially, I was put into like a suction, and then they tried elevated vacuum, and then they tried pin lock, and then they tried seal in, and the same result with all of them. I couldn't wear my leg very long, and so then I started training for that marathon in January, and about 2 weeks before the marathon, my leg was really, really bothering me. I mean, I'd have to take my leg off several times, like during my runs. And so I went and saw a doctor, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't think it's probably not a good idea for you to run. Like, you probably shouldn't even wear the leg at all because I had a lot of issues. Like, I had a bone infection first of all, and then they told me that with how if they revised the BK, my limb would be too short to wear a prosthesis and be able to do the activities that I enjoy doing. But then my popliteal artery behind my knee was pinched completely shut. And so there was like a procedure they could have tried to like rewire the nerves and the little tiny blood veins. But the surgeon flat out told me that she didn't think it was going to work. Like it had gotten pretty bad. And then even if they had done that, then I had the issue with the bone infection. So I didn't really have a choice in that. But then, so they told me not to run anymore, but I was only 2 weeks away from the marathon. So I was like, fuck that. I'm doing this. So I ran the marathon, and I think that kind of made everything worse. And then a week later, I had a Spartan race, and they were like, under no circumstances, like you like don't even wear the leg. And so I did the Spartan race anyway. And at that point, they were like, all right, well, like it's gotten bad. Like I wasn't getting any circulation to my leg anymore. And so they're like, we need to. I was hoping to get a knee disc artic. I was hoping to go through the knee so they didn't have to like cut through my femur. But where the artery was pinched shut, it was like 2 centimeters too high. So they had to go above knee. So
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, when you first came to me and you're like, "Hey, I think I might have to get an above the knee," I was like, "What the fuck, dude? You're running marathons!" Like I was like totally confused. But now that you've explained it, that totally makes sense.
yeah,
And then,
it's kind of like not such a great deal. Like I have such a high pain tolerance that I just kept going and dealt with it. Like during the marathon, for the first 20 miles, it was going great. And then the last 6 miles, my leg was, it was probably every 100 yards, I'd have to take the leg completely off, put it back on. So the last 6 miles took me like over an hour. It was pretty miserable, but got through it. But yeah, I mean, I asked the doctor if even if I had stopped training for the marathon, would it have helped? And she's pretty much like, no. I think at that point, I mean, you could make it worse, which I did, but it wasn't going to get any better either. So in my mind, I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to run this marathon then.
Yep, totally. Yeah, so my issues are not exactly the same. Like I have some issues with my popliteal artery for sure. Like sometimes my leg. You said you were talking about your leg like turns beet red and then you have to take your leg off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I'm having the same fucking issue. And then I talked to a surgeon about getting a BK revision, but I can't because my leg is so atrophied that even if they did a BK revision, I don't like have enough padding to make a good pad, on the bottom.
Right.
And then I also have issues with my nerves, my tibial nerve and my, I forget the name of the other nerve. It must be a fibular nerve because it runs around the head of the fibula. So all of those, the nerve issues are like way up there, like in like that crotch of my knee, basically. And so that's why I'm getting an above. Those are the main reasons that I'm getting an above the knee amputation. Like if it was like any one of those problems, if it was just one problem happening, it could probably be solved. But it's not one. It's like a bunch of problems like compounding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to get a through the knee amputation because then the actual joint of my knee will be like lower than my sound knee. So like when I sit, it'll like stick out and it'll look weird. So
Mine does a little bit still because I have an adapter on my prosthetic so that I can like my leg can do a 360 at the knee.
oh yeah, you have a rotation adapter, yeah.
Yeah, and so it makes it to where like the knee is probably about an inch long, like sticks out further than my other knee, but it's like it's a give and take, and it's easier for me to drive with the adapter. So
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, that makes sense. Why you want to keep that.
yeah.
So you went from BK to AK. So what's that like? How's it different?
Oh man, I can't even begin to tell you like how different it is. Like it sucks sometimes because for instance, I would use, and I think you have one too, like an I walk, like as a BK. If I do, now I just use my wheelchair a lot of times. Like if I'm home, I'm in my wheelchair. I'm in my wheelchair right now. But before I had a house that had the ability to like roll around with the wheelchair, I used the I walk, and obviously, no knee can't use the I walk, and so
Right, yeah.
that's kind of something I never even thought about. Like, oh shit, and like when you're crawling around like on your bed or like crawling on the ground like with your dog or whatever, you're missing your leg as a BK, but you still have your knee, so you can still crawl on your hands and knees. As an AK, you can't do that, and so it's really weird. Like when I'm just like crawling around trying to play with my dog, that I can't just crawl around on my hands and knees. Like you have a kid, right? Like a little small kid, so like I don't know if you ever like crawl around on your hands and knees like when you're playing, but like you won't be able to do that anymore.
Yeah, I don't really a whole lot because it actually hurts my knee when I do that. So probably I guess what I would be doing is like scooting around on my butt.
Yeah. Or like I used to, like if I with my wheelchair even, as a BK, I could stand up and rest my knee on like the seat of my wheelchair, and it was almost like a perfect height, like the I walk. And obviously you can't do that anymore either.
Yeah.
And then it's just a lot harder to walk because I think I saw some statistic, or maybe I'm just making it up, I don't know, that like for every joint you lose, it's like 25% harder to do things. And so as a BK, you've lost one joint. As an AK, you've lost two. And so even just like walking is more exhausting. It takes a lot more energy. I used to be a really fast walker, like to the point where I'd have to slow down for my girlfriend. And now like I can't even keep up with her. I like it's like if I see my car in the distance, I'm like, fuck, it's gonna take me like 15 minutes to walk over there because you just can't really walk very fast.
Oh yeah.
So you have to like swing it, and then I would say like the recovery time for me as an AK was much faster than a BK, because as a BK, you have to get used to putting the weight on the end of your residual limb. As an AK, you don't really ever have your weight on the end of your leg. All of your weight is pretty much on your sitting bone, at least the majority. And so it really takes off. So I never really, I've never like bottomed out as an AK. And I never really feel pressure on the bottom of my stump as an AK. So I was able to walk a lot faster unassisted as an AK than I was a BK. So
Oh yeah.
that's one positive. A negative for me, I already had really big thighs, just from working out and stuff. So when they first did the AK, I mean, my residual limb was freakishly big. And so I had to wait a very long time to even get my first check socket, because that thing, they casted me, and it took like a ridiculous amount of plaster to make the check socket. And she was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, look at the size of this thing." And then literally within a week, I was in 10 ply sock. And so I went through 4 different check sockets before it even stabilized a little bit to make the laminated one. And then even when she did, she made it too small, knowing that I was going to shrink to get into it. So that sucked for me, because when I was a BK, I already had like big calves, but like it atrophied pretty quick, and the calf muscle is pretty small anyway. But for me, like having a quad and a hamstring to atrophy away, it took a lot longer. So that kind of sucked.
So how long did that take?
Probably took about 2 months. Yeah, probably took about 2
That's
months.
not even that long. Come on, Steven.
But you understand, I'm so active, just even being not without a leg for a short amount of time. I mean, it fucking sucks.
Oh no, I completely understand. Yeah, I have had so many issues with my sockets not fitting, and it's either there's pain on the end or there's pain from the nerves being pressed. And it's like, if you relieve the pain on the end by transferring more weight over to the sides, then it irritates the nerves. And so it's like, I just can't win. Like, I've been in my prosthetist office, like crying, like getting upset because like no leg fits me. I've had 6 people make a leg for me.
I had 10
people?
as a BK. Yeah, I
Oh my God.
I flew all over the country trying to find somebody. And I will say this about being an AK versus a BK. It's a lot easier to get a fit for an AK, because as a BK, like when they cast it, it's almost like a triangle. Like there's a lot of grooves and shit, like as a BK. Whereas an AK, when they cast you, it's almost just a perfect circle. Like, what I'm saying? Like there's not. It's not like a crazy, like as a BK, right? As a BK, like once they cast you and make a mold of your residual limb, it'll fit like no other person on planet Earth. Whereas I think as an AK, it's not the case, because it's almost just like a hollowed out circle.
Like a tube.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess it would depend on the type of socket they make. There's like what's called a hi-fi socket, where they do compression in certain areas, and so it ends up having like almost these like balloon, where like there's areas that pressed in on your femur to lock your femur in, and then the rest is just volume of your skin that needs to be taken up. And so then it looks real shapely, is what I'm saying. Like my prosthetist sent me one the other day, and I'm like, why is this so shapely? And he's like, oh, it's a modified hi-fi socket. I'm like, oh, okay, got it.
Like as a BK?
No, as an AK.
Oh, yeah. Or maybe it's just because my leg is still not super atrophied. Like there's still quite a bit of muscle there. So like maybe if it was more bony, it might look a little different. But like when I was a BK, you could almost like see my shin bone in the cast. So I will say I think what's been the most frustrating part for me, and it's kind of silly, about being an AK, is as a BK, there's no wrong way to put your leg on, right? Like it's a mold, and so it just fits in that mold. As an AK, you can put your leg on wrong, and I do it all the time. Like I'll put the leg on.
Oh, I can put my leg on wrong for sure. If I do, it's like digging into my kneecap.
Yeah, well, for like as an AK, like I'll put my leg on and it feels like it should, and then I start walking and my foot's like this.
Oh yeah.
And I never really experienced that as a BK because it was a perfect mold of my. There was no wrong way to put it on, but as an AK, it's very easy to put it on wrong, and I gotta take it
Oh,
off. And so that shit drives me crazy because I'll fight to get it on, and I'll take 2 steps and be like motherfucker, and have to take it right back off and put it back on, and like messing with the socks. And then you always have to carry a. I hate this. You have to carry around a squirt bottle with either hand sanitizer or alcohol because I have a suction, so you constantly got to spray it to put it on. It's just little shit like that kind of sucks.
all that reminds me of like my early BK experience when like I would put my shit on wrong and it would hurt really bad, and I would get socks and like little pieces of foam and stick it in there to try to like make it like semi comfortable. Or but yeah, you're right, I definitely can't put it on wrong such that my foot is facing all awkward wrong way, because it would be digging into my knee way before that would happen.
Right, exactly. And so pretty much, I mean, I will say I would never purposely go from BK to AK, right? Because that just makes no sense. I'd rather just go to an AK if that was the end result. But I think being a BK first, then an AK, I think it made it it was an easier transition, right? To go, it's like if you went from just a normal two-legged person straight to an AK, I think it'd be just a crazy like culture shock. Whereas like if you went from a BK to an AK, at least you know kind of going into it what to expect. Like when I went, I spoke like everybody does. I spoke to a few BKs before the amputation, and they're like, yeah, like it's pretty painful the first like week, blah blah blah. And I was like, oh shit, man. And then I woke up from the hospital and like had no pain, and for like 5 or 6 days had no pain. I'm like, huh, you guys are wimps. This is nothing. And then like day 8 or 9 hit, and I was like in a world of pain once all the pain meds were out of my body and stuff. Because 4 days being in the hospital, just being pumped full of Dilaudid and morphine, it took about a week for all those pain meds to like flush out. But when they did, that shit sucked. Whereas an AK, I didn't have any pain like ever. Like I got out of the hospital and kind of had that same anticipation, like, okay, like once all these pain meds were off, I'm be in pain. But that never really happened. So
Well, that sounds nice. They sent me home after 23 hours when I got my BK, and then that's right when all my meds, all the, uh, that's right when the nerve block wore off, and I was like, this is horrible.
yeah.
Um,
When I was a BK, they gave me an epidural. But when I woke up, my whole left side was numb and not my right. And so when I woke up, I was just in a shit ton of pain because the wrong side was numb because I lost my right leg.
oh, well, crap.
And so finally, like at 3 a.m., they flew in another anesthesiologist to redo it. So for like 12 hours, I was puking and in constant pain. I wanted to kill myself. It was so bad. But so when I was a BK, I spent 4 days in the hospital. AK 4 days also. So, but when I was an AK, it sucked because it was in March, so right when COVID hit. And
Oh, yeah. So you can't have any visitors, yeah.
yeah, and it was the day before my 30th birthday too. So they my girlfriend just wheeled me to the front door and was like, "All right, bye." And so I woke up, no leg again, birthday, no one there. I was like, "Man, this is the worst fucking birthday ever." So
Yeah, it's a pretty shit birthday.
yeah, and the nurse was cool. She sang me happy birthday, but like I was like Skyping and FaceTiming with people, but I was so drugged up, I don't even remember. And apparently I sent like pictures of people or pictures to people with like my freshly cut off leg. Like who wants to see that? Don't even remember sending for like a BK going to an AK, you know, I would say if there's at all like a small possibility of saving the knee, it's worth doing. But like if that's just not an option, then I mean, you know what it's like to go through. I mean, it's the same process, as a BK, as an AK, like they cut it off. You gotta wait, get the staples. I add staples this time. Like, do wait for that. Wait for the incision to heal. Check socket. I mean, like you already know the steps are no different. They're the exact same. I think learning to walk is a lot harder because just getting used to the knee. Like there, like for a while, like the knee would just give out on me because I wasn't standing correctly, or you have to like walk over the toe a certain way for the knee to bend. If not, the knee won't bend, and so like I would get like, the knee would just lock on me. And so like that shit takes getting used to. But as a BK, like you already know kind of the steps and you know how long it takes. So I don't know if that's good or bad because you know what's coming, you know how shitty it is that first
Yeah.
months. But I mean, I'm not even 5 months post amputation, and I'm already deadlifting almost 400 pounds. I can squat almost 300, and I mean, and different. You know, I know you do like acrobatic shit and whatever that is, and so like in no time you'll figure out a way to do it like me. So I know one thing, I guess, like the prosthetic is heavy as shit. It weighs probably close to 20 pounds. I mean, it's heavy. My knee, the Genium X3, it's just a very heavy knee. Like the 3R80, it's very light, but the X3 is very heavy. And so the whole socket is super heavy. And so that kind of sucks because like I feel like I sweat more. And then I like to do a lot of CrossFit style workouts, and I'm sure you've seen other AKs like Derek Weider or someone. I mean, you just got to kind of get creative. Like sometimes I have to take the leg off to do certain movements because, like doing like box jumps, obviously it's a lot easier just to take the leg off and do them than do it.
Oh yeah, totally.
But so like whatever like sport or hobbies you have, you just got to find your own way of doing it. If you're passionate about it, you'll figure out a way to do it. So
Yeah, I sit at night and I like think about like how I'm gonna do certain aerial skills with one leg and how I would adapt that for myself. And I'm like, okay, well, can't do it that way. Like climbing, you know, the typical way people climb, but I can do it this way without a leg. And you don't even need a leg at all to do certain climbs.
I would say not having leg makes some things easier because you're a lot lighter, you know. Just even from the weight difference from a BK, like on your leg, like you don't realize that what like 6 to 8 inches of leg. I mean, with all the bone and tissue and muscles and whatnot, like it makes a difference. Like it's a lot easier for me to do muscle ups and like pull ups and stuff as an AK because I don't have that weight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I did. So one thing, there's a lot of AKs out there that have negative things to say about BKs. It is what it is. I think it's kind of ridiculous. So I would never say anything negative about a BK. I was one. I used to get super offended when an AK would refer to a BK as like not a real amputee or a paper cut. Like that shit used to piss me off. But as an AK, you're like, well, I kind of get it now. Like I would never say that, but like you see where they're coming from because it's just that much different.
Yeah, I mean, definitely I don't think it's right for an amputee to say that kind of stuff to another amputee. Like
I agree.
you're just minimizing another person's traumatic experience because you think yours is more traumatic or more difficult. Like that is, we don't need to be gatekeeping over in this amputee world. Like that's ridiculous.
Is it like a for sure deal already, or is it still kind of up in the air?
It's a for sure deal. I've talked to a couple of surgeons, and it's either do an AK or live in pain.
You don't have it be on like a date or like a.
Oh no, I don't have a date yet. I have to. So since I have a kid now, I want to find ways to be able to transport him around in my wheelchair, and I can't do that and get from my house to the car. So I'm gonna build a deck and put a lift on it. I already got the lift and like half the deck materials. I just have to, get my permits and have my friends come and help me build it. But I want to make sure that happens first before I go cutting my body parts off.
Well, damn. Yeah, that's never good to hear. But like my situation was so bad as a BK, and then I had all those issues, and I don't have any issues now. Like the things I deal with now are nothing in comparison to like what I used to deal with, as far as like pain wise and stuff. So it's my life is much better, even though it's harder. My life is better, if that makes sense.
I just got to my limit of wearing my leg.
As an AK, it's like for me, it's just more miserable. Like it's just so much harder to put the leg on too. Like you can slide into your BK leg, and like I don't know, for me anyway, when I was a BK, I could like slide my leg in and not even roll the sleeve up and just walk and do something. and it was like boom, boom, no problem. But it takes me like, it's not an easy process to put the leg on and take it off. So it's just, for me, it's just much easier to take it off and just wheelchair around, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, unless I probably spend more time in my wheelchair than in my leg, I would say. Now that I'm like actually going back and working and shit, I've actually started wearing my leg for pretty much like 8 to 10 hours straight, and I don't have any issues. But let me tell you, when I get home, I waste no time taking it off and getting in my wheelchair.
It's like ladies in their bras. We're like, wow.
Oh, I tell my girlfriend all the time, if you think that feels good, wait. If you, I mean, so you'll know, like you just mentioned, you get home and just rip that bra off and like let them go, and you think that feels good. Wait until you're an AK, and after you wear your leg for like 8 hours, you take that bad boy off. It's like, I mean, there's no greater feeling, I don't think. It's so, I mean, it's just relaxing.
Oh yeah, for reals.
But it was kind of weird at first because like I was saying about the weight, I was just mind blown by how weightless my leg now feels. Like,
It's not there. Of course, it's weightless.
well, it's just like, it feels like it feels like you, if you like, you tie like 13 helium balloons to my leg. Like when I first woke up from the amputation, I was like, oh my god, like that, like it's almost like whoa, because it's like so, it's so light. It's just, you'll, and like I said, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just like, oh my god, like it's just crazy that just that much more leg cut off makes that big. I mean, you remember when you first got your BK, you're like, oh shit, my leg is so much lighter now. Well, now you're getting more of it cut off, almost all of it now, and it's like, oh shit, this is.
Yes, and then you do the thing that every new BK does and try to put your pants on the regular way, and you like way overshoot your pants.
Oh, as an AK, pants don't exist. It's just too hard.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna wear pants anymore. Screw
Especially,
that.
I mean, I live in Arizona, so pants are
Oh
already
yeah.
not a thing. But like, it's, I've had to put pants on. Like I'm gonna be in a wedding in September, and I had them tailor the pants to where one leg is shorts and the other one's pants, because it just sucks trying to put the pants on. And then if you need to take your leg off, I mean, fuck, you have to go to the bathroom, or
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
gotta take your pants off. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, no, like even on my sweatpants, I cut the right leg off.
Oh yeah, dude. I had, man, this it was horrible. This one, I went to a job interview, and uh, my socket was killing me. Like it was throbbing. It hurt so bad. And so I go into the bathroom like while I'm waiting for this interview, and I'm wearing these, interview pants. So I can't roll them up to take my leg off. So I got to go take my pants off, just as a BK. And so I take my leg off, and the whole leg is just beet red. And I'm like, how am I going to do this interview like this? And so I waited for it to not be quite so beet red. It was like 10 minutes, and I like put it on. I'm like, well, hopefully sitting down won't be that big deal. So I go into the interview. 10 minutes into the interview, I'm like, I'm sorry guys, I gotta take my leg off. So I'm like trying to like finagle it. I like ended up taking it off kind of backward. Like I pulled my pants up, and then I pulled the sleeve off of the socket, and then I mean, I'm sure it looked ridiculous, but I was like trying to focus on, being a good interview person for this job. And I'm like in for real, like 10 out of 10 pain. And I'm like, I have to take it off. Like I just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't get that job, but whatever. My prosthetist and I have talked about a couple of different things. He wants to start with ischial containment socket, which sounds like what you have.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and then after everything's all shrunk away and atrophied, and I'm in my like final form, to try sub-ischial with vacuum. So I don't know how that's going to work because my leg is pretty. I have connective tissue disorder. That's one of the reasons I have a problem wearing a BK. So like my leg's real floppy, like the tissues like slide up and down a lot on my limb, and that, I mean, it's the same above and below the knee. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of challenges that will cause as an AK, because it definitely is a big issue with BK stuff.
And that's one thing too, that's kind of like a fear is, you know, if you go through with it and things don't change, I mean, you don't have much leg to cut off. I mean, you're looking at probably just being in a wheelchair or something. You're like, if going AK doesn't solve the problems, then it's like shit, you know.
Yeah, I
Because
know.
that was a concern of mine, you know. Well, I didn't really have a choice, but like I did think like, oh shit, if they go AK and like I run into more issues or whatever, it's like fuck, what do you do then? Like if you're a very active guy like I am, you need that ischial containment. It's not as comfortable because like there's a part on the socket that kind of like flares out where you sit on, and when you're sitting on it and it hurts. It's not comfortable. Like that's one thing I would say that sucks the most is like you're sitting on this flared out piece of carbon fiber and like it doesn't feel good. But the it keeps you contained. Without that, you're not as contained. It's more comfortable to wear, but then like as an athlete, it's you can't do as much. So it's like for me, it's like okay, I'll just deal with a little bit of discomfort um, with that flared out part as opposed to you know not being secure in there. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
but yeah, I think I think you'll be fine. I think I mean, like I said, you already know what it's like. You've already been a BK for so long. You are already like well on your way to like being used to it. You know, kind of comfortable with it. It was like your new normal, right? And so now you're just starting all over again. It's just that's the
I
part.
know.
Like it wasn't very long. I wasn't a BK for very long in comparison to like I think you've been in BK for like several years. Um,
7?
yeah. See, you probably don't even remember what it's like to have two legs. That's the point.
I don't. I really don't.
Exactly. So, and like, granted, it's uncomfortable and you're in pain, but like you've dealt with it. Like you've getting like you're in a routine and like you know when to like do certain like if you have a pain here, you know what to do to fix that or whatever. And as an AK, it's just like I said, this starting all over completely with like different pains, different discomforts, and it just starting all over again. That's the part that sucks the most, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely can totally see that, and definitely anticipate that. I'm like, that's what I really don't want to do the most is start all over again. I'm like, oh, I really don't want to do this shit. I'm done. I don't want to do it.
But
It almost,
you're starting all
but
over, but it's harder because
yeah,
you're going through all the same shit, but now you're learning to walk with the artificial knee. And you got to
right.
remember to charge it, like stupid shit like that. You got to remember to charge it. I can tell me AKs I know, like they'll be doing something else on you, their fucking leg dies. And it's like, oh, damn it. Now you got to like peg leg yourself. That hasn't happened to me, thank God, because luckily my knee stays charged for like several days. But like when I was borrowing a C leg 4, it was a loaner before my X3 came in, and it just wouldn't charge. I'd plug it in, it wouldn't charge, so I'd put the leg on. I'm just like I just got it, as my first check socket, so I just want to hurry up and start walking. I've been for 4 months now. I've been in a wheelchair, and then I go to take a step, bitch is dead. I'm like, fuck.
Oh yeah, so you're walking around like a freaking pirate. Like yeah, like I use the I walk now when I can't wear my leg.
Right.
That thing it's basically the same thing. Like it's like a pirate. It's like a prosthetic leg. It's like an AK leg with no knee, and it's loud. Like it's like clomp, clomp,
I
clomp. So I
played 18 holes of golf in a I walk.
really.
Horrible. Fucking sucked. But
I mean,
but
I love that thing, but I hate it. Like it's a great product. It's amazing to
right.
have, but I also I don't like it. What do you think about osteo integration?
Oh man. For a BK, I
No,
would
for an AK or a BK.
I would never do it as a BK. I just I don't know. I think there are too many options as a BK. Um but as AK, I like the idea of it. I think personally, I think it's still too new for me to try. I'd like for it to be out a little bit longer and like more perfected. Like someone else could be a guinea pig for a while. And then when they get all, like with anything, like once all the kinks are out and it's like it's foolproof and like it's good to go, then I might consider it. I've also heard that like if you're a very active person, then you're really limited on how athletic you can be. I think because like essentially you have this anchor in your femur and like you could potentially like break that femur. I don't know what the reasoning is for not being able to be as active, but I'm still so active that maybe once I slow down a bit at that,
Yeah,
maybe
like when you're 70 or something.
yeah, we're dead, whatever. But yeah, I don't know when it maybe like when I get to a point where like I'm not as active and like it's a little more perfected, then I might try it.
Is there anything else you want to tell me or say or talk about with regard to AK stuff?
No, I think I mean it seems like your mind's pretty made up, and as I guess we're friends, right? We're friends. So I guess as a friend, uh, I support whatever decision you make. You're a grown ass woman, and clearly you've made up your mind. And like for the most part, with sane people, like people, it's a last resort. Like I'm sure you wouldn't even be considering this if the situation wasn't so bad, right? So
Right.
like as a friend or even like a unbiased third party just voicing an opinion, like I say fucking go for it. If you really feel that that's your option and you feel that like by doing that, by going to an AK, that like your life is gonna be better, then fucking I say do it, right? I mean, obviously you're not happy with the situation and what's going on now, so like I don't think there's any surgeon out there that would do it if they didn't believe that this is what's best for you. At least I trust that there's not surgeons out there that are just trying to earn a paycheck by cutting people's shit off. But
Surgeons don't actually get that much money for amputations. They get more money from salvages.
oh, well, see, there you go. So then even more so proving my point. There's a surgeon's not going to cut your limb off unless it's like what's best for you. At least that's what I hope. And so, when the first surgeon and the second surgeon, when they both told me this is what's best for you, then obviously I listened. And
Yeah, the same thing happened to me.
yeah, so like your surgeon, I'm sure, like you're a smart person, so like I'm sure you've probably researched hundreds of surgeons, and I'm sure the one that you've picked, you're very confident in their abilities. So like, because I mean, it's a big deal. Like you're putting a lot in their hands, to keep you safe. Like my surgeon that did my AK, fucking awesome. She rocked it, and like the incision's clean. Like it healed fast. I have no issues. Like it is fucking flawless. So, yeah, you'll be fine. I think for you to be at the point you're at now, you've thought about it. I'm sure you've thought about it for a very long time, and and it probably is what's best for you. So like for other people that like want to put other people down and shit, like that to me is nonsense. Like they don't know you, they don't know what you're going through, they don't know what your mindset is, and they don't know like what your quality of life is. And you can only read so much off of like a form, so like unless they're
Right.
unless they're like in your body, in your mind, they don't know what the fuck's going on. So I say fuck those people.
I just wanted to thank Steven for the very insightful conversation that we had, and thank you all for watching. See you later.